Most guys think they need 5 days a week in the gym to make progress, but in my 15 years as a coach, what I found is this is actually one of the reasons that a lot of guys are holding themselves back. Now, if you're new to my channel, my name is Randy Hill. I'm a Marine Corps veteran and I'm the owner of High Risk Fitness. I've spent the last 15 years coaching special operators, professional athletes, and just regular dads who want to be the ultimate protectors of their families. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you how I train those guys and myself to make more progress in 3 days than most people make in 5. Now, I've always been a busy guy, but before I was coaching full-time, I was coaching while working full-time jobs. I was a Marine, I was a fireman, and then I had kids, which made things even more complicated. Now, all these time constraints forced me to figure out how to still make the same amount of progress with a limited schedule. And what I learned was it's not only possible, but that's probably how I should have been training the entire time. Now, when I first started my own fitness journey, I was 6'5" and 165 pounds and a string bean. I started training like most guys do with a generic training split, hitting, one body part every time I'd go to the gym. Made a little bit of progress, but not a whole lot. It wasn't until I really started my professional strength coaching career that I realized that it wasn't about how much time I spent in the gym. It wasn't about my split. It was about making sure that everything that I was doing was clearly progressing me from the previous session. This is what I call the difference between working out and training. When you're training, you are analyzing your training, after you write it down, of course, and then making sure that every time you do something, you are beating the logbook. So you're either doing more weight or more reps, or another set, or taking less rest time, or doing something faster than the previous time to make sure that your body actually adapts to something new. The analogy that I use is, think of it like when you go out in the sun. Your skin responds by giving you a tan. But if you don't get more sun than your body's used to, the tan doesn't get darker. So it's the same thing with training. You have to expose your body to something new for your body to then do something new. Now again, back then I had no obligations, right? I was single, I had all the time in the world to train. And I trained a lot. I mean, sometimes I was in the gym 5 or 6, even 7 days a week. But I realized that not only was that holding me back, but I was wasting time doing redundant stuff in the gym. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. So let's say you're in the gym doing a leg workout. I would do hack squats and then leg extensions, but I'm working the quad in the same way both times. My quad doesn't know if I was on a hack squat or on a leg extension. It just knows that the knee is flexing and extending. Or I would go and I would do a back day and I would do a cable row and a dumbbell row and a barbell row and a machine row. And I basically do the exact same thing 4 times for an hour. Now, some fitness influencers will say things like, well, you need to hit the muscle at different angles. But exercise science shows us that most of the time that's not really possible. The joint just flexes and extends and the same muscles are used every time. Anyways, eventually I removed that redundancy and then realized that I didn't need half as much time as I'd been spending in the gym. But at some point my life got busy. I got a job as a fireman and I had to go to the academy. Now the academy was 4 months long and it was grueling. It was the middle of the summer. It was, 5 days a week, pretty much all day. And it was mostly cardio. But I didn't want to lose my strength gains when I was in the academy. At minimum, I wanted to maintain them and hopefully progress them to some extent. So I had to get creative and figure out how that was going to be possible given the time and energy demands. And this is a problem that I know a lot of guys have, because when I talk to them, they'll tell me, I work all the time, I'm tired from work, I need time to spend with my family. And most people see that as a reason that they can't train, because most people's perception of training is more is better, and you have to grind yourself into the dirt every time you go in the gym to get stronger or build muscle. So I had to adjust the training to fit the way that my life was right now. So instead of focusing on grinding myself into the ground every time I was in the gym, I chose a variation of a program made by a guy named Dan John. Now, Dan John's philosophy with his training is that a lot of your strength comes from neural adaptations and learning movement patterns. In Western cultures, we just think about going hard, training to failure, but a lot of the Eastern Bloc countries, especially with their Olympians, they focus more on doing less more often. So instead of grinding myself into the ground with a lift every time I'd go to the gym, I practiced that lift more frequently with less weight, which took me hardly any time. And what happened when I did that was not only did I maintain my strength in the academy, but I actually PR'd my squat and my bench. But the moral of the story is that there is always a way to adjust your training to make it work with your schedule and your work demand. But I know that you're not here to hear about my training. You're here to figure out how you can make your training work with your schedule. So I'm going to tell you exactly how I would do this for somebody that has 3 days a week to train and no more than an hour. And honestly, a lot of my clients are only in the gym 3 days a week for an hour anyways, because we don't need more than that. Because when I'm designing a training program, I'm not looking at how many days per week I want to train. I'm looking at what I need to get done throughout that week and then fitting it into the schedule. This is why having a split is totally backwards. So first of all, we have some non-negotiable movement patterns that have to be a part of the training to make it as effective and time efficient as we can. These are gonna be your squat pattern, your press pattern, and your deadlift pattern. Now notice I said pattern because it doesn't have to be a back squat, a bench press, and a barbell deadlift. It just needs to be some variation of these movements so that we're making sure that we're training every type of movement that your body typically does. We want to get the most out of every exercise with the least amount of time. So don't just do back squats, bench presses, and deadlifts because you think that that's what you're supposed to do. You need to pick the exercises that work for you. For instance, I don't even do barbell back squats because they don't really work for my body type, yet my legs are twice the size they were as when I was squatting 585. And with the deadlift, I don't even have most of my clients do barbell deadlifts. For the most part, we're using the trap bar because it's safer and we can still get the exact same movement pattern done without the injury risk. The only time I really have somebody do a barbell deadlift is if they want to improve their deadlift specifically. All right, so our non-negotiable movements, squat pattern, press pattern, and deadlift pattern. These are our main compound lifts. They're the bread and butter of the program. Everything else in the training session is designed to support those. And what I mean by support them is we're fixing sticking points and we're working on lagging muscle groups that are holding those exercises back. All right, so the hypothetical week that I planned out was day 1, squat and some kind of vertical press. Day 2, deadlift and upper body pulling. And then day 3, a horizontal press like a bench press, and a lighter squat pattern. So this ensures that we're getting that full body stimulus without really missing anything, but you can kind of adjust that based on what you think you need to work on or what you want to prioritize. All right, so now that we have the framework, here's how we structure the sessions. So obviously you have to start out with some kind of warm up, okay? So you can just spend 5 minutes doing something to get your heart rate up a little bit. You could walk, you could do jumping jacks, jump rope, you could hit the bag for a little bit, it doesn't matter. Just something to break a sweat. And then if you have any nagging injuries or old injuries, you can do prehab or rehab work real quick to keep those things at bay so they don't crop up and then derail your training. Okay, so we're gonna break down the steps of the session. Okay, step 1 after the warm up is potentiation. Now this part is only gonna take you about 5 minutes. So we're gonna start every single session with potentiating movement. This is our best chance to build explosive power, which is an important part of being that tactical athlete, but it's also going to prime us neurologically for that main lift. So for the squat day, I'd recommend something like a box jump. For the press days, I would recommend something like a plyo push-up, right? Where you're just like leaving the ground. And then for the deadlift day, I like to do either a trap bar jump or you can hold dumbbells, but it needs to be light so you can get as much vertical force as possible. Because what these exercises are doing are basically simulating what you're gonna be doing in the main lift, but explosively. Okay, so now our nervous system is activated and we're ready for that main lift. Now, step 2, the anchor of the session, the main compound movement. Now remember, progression here is key, okay? So if you don't have a progression model in mind that you want to use, a really simple one that I really like that works every time is picking a rep range. So let's say we pick 5 to 7 reps for that main compound movement. Every time we hit 7 reps, we go up in weight and then start back at 5. And then we do 6 and then 7 and then bring the weight up again. Now we're back at 5. This is called double progression. This part might take you up to 20 minutes depending on how strong you are because those warm-up sets and then also your rest times between sets are gonna take a little bit longer. Okay, step 3 is the targeted assistance exercises. So you're gonna pick 2 exercises that address your specific sticking points and weaknesses in that main lift. So for the squat, it might be quads and glutes. For the bench press, it might be triceps and delts. And for the deadlift, it's usually hamstrings and low back. Now, if you aren't sure where your weak spots are, record yourself doing a heavy set, watch the video and see where your form starts to break down or where you start to slow down throughout the movement. So just to give you an example, in the squat, if I'm getting stuck at the bottom, that's where my quads are doing most of the work. And so I know that my assistance exercises need to be quad focused. Now for these, you would use the exact same progression model, the double progression, but you'd pick a higher rep range because we're working with isolation, smaller muscle groups. Typically we'll pick something like 8 to 12 reps, something we can still go relatively heavy on, and we're not limited by like how sore the exercise makes us. Because if you pick super high reps, a lot of the time you are going to stop the set because of metabolic fatigue, because of the burning sensation, not because the actual muscle is failing. So I'm not a really big fan of doing, sets of 20 plus reps. So think of it this way, adding 5 pounds to a dumbbell curl is a lot of weight. Adding 5 pounds to your deadlift is a tiny percentage of what you can do. It's almost imperceptible. But 5 pounds on a curl might as well be 100. So we've got our warm up, our potentiating movement, our main compound lift, and our 2 assistance exercises. This should not take you more than 1 hour to complete. And for the vast majority of guys, there's really no reason to be doing more than this because more is not better. But this is just the lifting. We want to be human weapons, right? We want to be able to lift like someone twice our size and move like someone half our size. So how do we do conditioning with a busy, limited schedule? Now, the easiest way to do this is to pick 2 or 3 conditioning workouts that you can do at any point throughout the week. So I don't anchor these to any specific day. I call them floating movements, and I do them when they're convenient. Because some days you're gonna have more time than others. Maybe you're gonna stack these later in the week. Maybe you'll get one done on one Monday, maybe one on Wednesday, maybe one on the weekend on Saturday. Maybe you do one on Saturday and then one on Sunday. But don't tell yourself that you have to do it on a specific day, because if you don't complete it, then you're gonna miss it. And with the guys that I coach, we don't want to just be big bodybuilders. We wanna be jacked, strong, and fast. Now, we're not just doing mindless cardio, okay? We're hitting the 3 energy systems that the body uses to make us a well-rounded athlete, okay? These are alactic, which is like short, explosive power, think like 10 seconds or less. Glycolytic, which is our ability to repeat difficult efforts with a given rest period. And aerobic, which is our ability to go longer distances at a lower heart rate. But the biggest mistake guys make is they'll focus really hard on the lifting, and then their conditioning will just be very unstructured. They'll go for a mile run every single time, or they'll slog away in the treadmill, and then they're not doing progressive overload. Progressive overload has to happen in the lifting and the conditioning. There is no difference. Your body is just adapting to stresses that you give it. So if you're always going on a 2-mile run, your body's only gonna get really good at doing a 2-mile run. You're never gonna build that ability to sprint, that ability to do repeated efforts. You're just gonna get really good at going for 2 miles. Now, my favorite way to do alactic is on something like an assault bike or any kind of like fan resisted cardio piece, okay? Because we have to have enough resistance to where we can really go hard for that 10 seconds. I like to avoid doing flat ground sprints because of massive injury risk and then added wear and tear on the joints that we need to be able to save for the lifting. Now, running itself is a skill and you should be able to run, but if we can build up your cardiovascular system, you can then express that in the running. So you don't really have to run as often as you think you do, unless your goal is to be able to, do a marathon or something. Now, the second one, glycolytic, like I said, my favorite way to do this is 30-second sprints with 30 seconds of rest for between 5 and 10 rounds. Now, the way that you can progress the glycolytic work is you can add sets, or you can reduce the rest time, or you can hit a higher RPM on something like the assault bike each time you train. But the important thing is that you have a consistent pace throughout all the sets. So if you do 5 sets of 30 on, 30 off with 75 RPMs, and then the next set you get 40 RPMs, you need to cut that training session off because you're no longer achieving the stimulus. Now, finally, aerobic. This is where we're keeping things in that zone 2 range. My favorite way to do this is rucking, because rucking is a skill that guys like us need to develop. So on the weekend, you get a ruck with a hip pad, like a nice quality ruck where you can distribute the load, not a freaking Walmart JanSport backpack. And you put 15 to 20% of your body weight in there, depending on how strong you are. And you go for an hour and you just stay zone 2, fast walking for that period of time. Now, before we wrap this up, these are the biggest mistakes guys make when they're trying to condense their training for a busy schedule. One is they'll skip a session entirely if it doesn't fit in that day, and then they're gonna miss an important part of the progression. And then 2, guys will double up on their training sessions, so now they have a 2-hour-long session where the intensity suffers, and towards the end of that workout, you're not really putting any effort in. So the best way to condense your training if you have a particularly crazy week is to take the compound lifts from 2 workouts and piece them together, and then one of the assistance exercises from each workout. So now you have 2 compound lifts and 2 assistance exercises. Now that's 4, which maybe it'll take a little bit more time, but generally, because we're only doing 2 of the assistance exercises, we can still get that done within the hour. That is a much better compromise than skipping a training session altogether or doing 2 and just freaking burying yourself and then paying for it down the road with recovery. And the last thing that you want to do is replace a structured training session with some ChatGPT slop bodyweight workout. Again, something like that is going to make you feel like you got a good workout, but because our body is working on adaptations, if we're not doing that workout all the time, there's no point. We're just getting ourselves sore and sweaty and tired. So when I have a client and they're traveling one week, I'm not just going to give them random bodyweight workouts. I'm going to give them exercises that are still in line with the things that we need to be working on for that week that they're traveling. So in the end, if your training is efficient, you really only need 3 days a week in the gym and never more than an hour. Guys, I literally do this for a living and I'm never in the gym for more than an hour. Now, of course, this is just a framework, okay? So if you want a plan that's built specifically for you, that accounts for your schedule, your body type, your equipment, and your injuries, you can apply for one-on-one coaching with me. There's a link in the bio, you just click it, you fill out a quick form, and then you can book a call with me where we'll discuss your goals. The guys who are making progress and are well-rounded athletes aren't spending more time in the gym. They're not training harder, they're training smarter. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.